we turn our attention to what might be called the libertarian left, or more popularly, anarchism.
This is the same logic shared by Marx and Freud.
Functioning libertarian socialist institutions, I think they are an interesting model that I think is highly relevant.
Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Theoryish. My name is Hannah Ayres, and sitting next to me is
Paola Medina-Gonzalez.
And together we're going to do this kind of podcast. This is going to be the introduction. So we're going to talk about who we are, what the podcast is going to be, and the format of the episodes more generally, and maybe kind of how you might want to listen to the episodes because of the way we're kind of structuring them. But if you don't want to listen to this first introduction and you really just want to delve into the theory, there should be another episode out. Hopefully. We'll take it out if it's not. There should be another episode out for you to listen to, so you can dive straight into the theory if you want to. But if you want to sit back and listen to us, get to know us a bit better, feel free. Paola, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Paola. I used to be a history of art student. I studied history of art at The Ohio State University, go Bucks, and I did my master's at UCL here in the UK. However, I am now in my second year of PhD studies in history. My research is actually using my art historical background. I work with amateur photography during the Second World War that tends to engage with cross-dressing, stage performances, and other miscellaneous activities during the war, not while during the war, during the war. And Hannah, how about yours? What are your studies?
So I'm Hannah. I used to look at witchcraft at the University of Winchester here in the UK. I used to look more at how intellectuals saw early modern witchcraft, particularly in Europe and England. And then in my master's, I looked more into how early modern witchcraft was represented in museums in Salem, Massachusetts, Amsterdam, and here in England. And then my research now looks at queer representation in museums. So it was really quite a journey for me. I'm now at the University of Warwick along with Paola. So why are we doing the podcast, Paola?
That is a great question. Why are we? Even though we are not technically in philosophy departments, and if there's a theory department, I guess that counts as philosophy. We do engage with philosophy a lot, and we've noticed that we don't read as much as we should. I mean, what's your engagement with theory?
So I was a bad student at my undergraduate master's. This is no shameful point of mine. I've learned a lot from being a bad student. I'm now much better, but I feel like I didn't read all these kind of seminal texts that everybody really read in their undergraduate and masters. And now I'm kind of learning things via other people, like talking about them. Theory through osmosis, let's put it that way. But and through my own engagement with queer theory, I used to run a group that spoke more about queer theory. So that's my kind of background. I do want to learn more, and not just kind of social theory or philosophy, but any kind of theory really. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's your background, Paola?
So because of my studies in history of art, I engage with theory a lot. It was basically a seminal part of the degree map. So I'm very familiar with a lot of theory, or at least I can sort of work out what people mean by Foucauldian, or is this having this, that, or the other. But I'm really focused on a specific period of time when I engage with this sort of theory because of my practice in the specific time constraints of late 19th, early 20th century history. So I'm also too really looking forward to using this podcast to engage with things that I don't really get to work with. And that's also why we created this podcast. We want to make theory as accessible and as fun as possible, because usually it can be kind of boring. What do you think?
Yeah, no, sometimes it's really difficult to get into. You made a really good point when we were kind of planning the podcast, that theory can't be done in isolation, really. Your engagement with theory becomes much more developed when you're in conversation with other people. And so having that conversation with other people is really helpful and useful, which is kind of why it's not always just going to be me and Paola on these episodes. We're also going to include other guests, which would include other PhDs, potentially undergrads and masters, and as well as kind of non-academic based guests, because people do use theory in their activism, in their everyday lives, all that kind of stuff.
We really want to make sure that there's no hierarchical strategy to this. We are not the definitive voice of theory. If anything, we're proving that we should not be. But that instead, we're sort of looking at it with peers, with people that are really good at theory, some people that are not that great at theory, and we're just sort of working out exactly what we read and how we engage with it and use it in our everyday lives.
We're hoping you as a listener can also take part in this. You know, you might know more about theory than us. You might be able to correct us or add little interesting additions along the way, or things we haven't covered. Or you might just want to kind of learn with us, learn and move and engage with us. And yeah, it would be really nice. I also think that one of the things about theory that I particularly find interesting, and one of the reasons I am in academia, is that I find, somewhat in a kind of silly way, that knowledge is power, right? You having the language to speak to your own existence is really, really interesting, and theory can do that for you. You know, there's some theory, and we'll get to it kind of in the future, some theory I would describe almost as self-help or self-care, because it offers a way for you to understand your own existence in this world. Particularly a lot of social theory does this. A lot of philosophy, the whole point is to figure out what the hell are we doing here. And so I think there's something really interesting about having theory. Even if you're not in academia, understanding theory can be really beautiful and interesting, and it can also be quite impactful for your life. At least that's what I've thought.
I use theory in everyday life, and it's actually a big part of also a lot of the background work for this podcast. We are wanting to approach these themes very ethically and making sure that when we're engaging with theory that's a bit more sensitive, that we are approaching this as accurately as possible and as appropriate as possible.
Yeah, so now you kind of know who we are and what the podcast might entail. We want to talk to you more about the format of the episode so you understand why we've made the choices that we have. So the format of the episodes is going to be an introduction. So we're going to introduce the theory, who the theorist is, give them a bit more contextual background information. We then want to talk more about the actual theory itself, delve in. We'll do this in different ways depending on different texts. It's not a one-size-fits-all with theory. And sometimes if we have guests, they'll be there throughout the whole episode, but they'll really join in those parts. And then we are going to end in a very interesting way. If Paola, you want to talk about that?
So, I wanted to end many of the episodes. Not every single episode is going to actually end this way, because given sensitive nature of certain topics and certain subjects, I don't think it's appropriate to engage in it. However, I wanted to end each episode with a little bit of fan fiction. And before you completely tune this off, there's a purpose behind this. So I have recently found that a lot of people are engaging with theory and practicing working out theory and philosophy through the use of fan fiction. And that can entail anything from BTS fan fiction, we stan, all the way to like Marx Engels like fan fiction, which sounds odd, but let me tell you, there's plenty of it. And I thought it was a really good way to, one, sort of break down what we read. Some of it is quite intense or quite dull, let's be honest. And seeing people's creativity and implementing theory into these almost perfect environmental scenarios is really engaging, and it makes you look at how you can use theory even in the most creative of ways. I was mostly inspired by Marx Engels fan fiction, in which they used like Marxism and the Communist Manifesto in general in fan fiction between like a boy-love relationship between Marx and Engels. It sounds insane. It was absolutely amazing.
It also kind of allows us to finish these episodes on a lighter note. Sometimes we might finish by talking about a specific piece of media rather than talking about fan fiction, because that might be more relevant and also achieves the end goal of ending on a lighter note. And it also helps us connect this theory to everyday existence. You know, some of this theory is older, it might not seem as contextually relevant, but these theories stick, they stay around, there's a reason.
And we are trained in ways of attaching things we read to everyday life, and we push for media to be included when fan fiction cannot, so that even if you are having difficulty engaging with this material, engaging with the subject matter, maybe watching a film or engaging with a piece of art, it can actually go forth and start becoming a more tactile thing in your life.
Yeah, so that's what we're gonna do. This is the very first episode, like we said. Feel free to listen to the next episode. The next episode is on...
It's Walter Benjamin's A Short History on Photography.
Yeah, so I hope you enjoy it. I know I did. We've already recorded it before recording this one.
It is one of my favorite essays. I'm a diehard.
And then we're going to be releasing these episodes kind of on a bi-weekly schedule. There's some times we might potentially miss out a few releases, but we'll let you know as and when that might happen. You know, we're very busy PhD students, we got a lot going on, but I promise you this is something we really want to do, and so we're gonna stick by it.
Yeah, this is super, super fun so far, and we cannot wait to hear from actual people.
I can't wait to get smarter.
Are we? The jury's still
More
out.
existential, potentially.
Yeah, I need to be gother.
So, see you next time.
See you in the following episode, baby.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Theoryish. We really appreciate it and would love to hear your thoughts. Check out our Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter at Theoryish_pod for up-to-date information, and please rate, follow, and leave a review wherever you're listening to the podcast.
If you're interested in finding anything we have mentioned in the episode, please check our show notes or description to find more details. You can also contact us at theoryishpodcast@gmail.com.
See you next time.
Goodbye.